Hello everyone, welcome to episode 13 of the Contest Round podcast. As you all know, you can find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify and iTunes. And obviously being the 13th episode, I should really explain why I howled at the end of the last episode. I was trying to do this kind of like spooky Friday the 13th, but obviously it wasn't going out on Friday the 13th. So I can't really explain why I did that, but it was a good howl for anybody that really enjoyed it. You got a nice howl. I can pretend to be a wolf whenever I want. In any case, this episode is very special because it's going to be focused on something that a lot of us feel quite passionate about, and that is champion philosophy changes. Are Kabam changing the way that they're putting in new champions with abilities compared from, say, 2019 to 2020? And we're going to be joined to dissect this with a special guest. And this special guest is Kam. If you're not familiar with Kam, podcast of champions, giving it as good as Mike gives it to the contest and the people and us. And as well, you can find him on Twitter doing some fantastic in-depth analysis, and as well with Star Killer on the podcast of champions. We also have my glamorous co-host, who is Dan of MCOC, Dan Frontline MCOC. Thank you for joining me, Dan, first and foremost.
Thank you for having me, Rich. How are you doing?
I'm good. I mean, a lot of people won't realise that this is... We've had a lot of kind of like technical difficulties, and we're about 40 minutes late recording. But you know, the amount of effort that goes into these things, we try our best, don't we?
It's all right because we've got an important, exciting topic to talk about today, and we have an actual rocket scientist on the call with us to explain how these champions work, which is helpful.
Yeah, and Kam, sorry.
Thank you for the introduction, and also sometimes you just gotta howl, man. Sometimes you just gotta howl.
Yeah, works out pretty well.
A man's gotta howl.
Yeah. I should really do some bits and bobs to kind of like find out more about you. So I'm going to do this completely on the fly. Usually I do a bit more preparation, but so how long have you been playing Marvel Contest of Champions?
From basically a week after it came out of the beta. So nice. I'm not a beta player. I know like the true OG content creators are beta players as far as I know. Like, you know, back in the day, London Town and W Bang were beta players. But yeah, I've been playing since a week after that.
Nice. And what has made you still play the game to this day?
I mean, that's a good question. I like to tell myself that, you know, I have fun, but I think it's just a deep-rooting addiction. Yeah.
Yeah, I quite keep asking the same question, but then it's like, oh, I guess this is kind of enjoyable as long as
I'll go back.
I think as long as I don't spend too many units on one given path of doing some particular content, I can at least say to myself, I've had fun. This hasn't cost me too much. Maybe time, but it's been slightly enjoyable.
Yeah.
What a ringing endorsement, Rich.
I know.
I should put that on the new commercial.
Hey, I'm just trying to limit down my stress factor.
Yesterday in the CCP, we were talking about how we are seeing less and less of the MCOC ads. That's an ad right there. You know, it wasn't too bad. Slightly enjoyable.
Do you like stress? Do you like mobile games? Then try Marvel Contest of Champions. The game for everybody. Enjoy.
I think like when it comes to stress, though, it's just all part of that you know, pleasure receptors in your brain that, you know, you're taking in so much, you're having so much stress, and then you achieve this goal, whether it's small, whether it's big, and then you have all these endorphins coming in. So, you know, it makes for a good time, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, though Em was about to throw her phone at me about a couple of days ago because she was getting sick and tired of fighting against Civil Warrior in... If you have an Apocalypse, if you're on the Worshippers of Apocalypse, you'll know exactly why. When it comes to like if the champion gets regeneration, goes unblockable, gets armor, goes unblockable. So I dodged very well actually when that phone was coming towards me.
Yeah,
Head on.
She was unblockable at that time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Another kind of getting to know you question, and that is. I think the backstory to the podcast of champions, was that something to do with Idolist back in the day?
Yeah.
Was that because were you a contributor to that podcast, or was it a case you then said like, okay, well, if you're not going to do things anymore, then I'll continue on?
For sure. So, Idolist and I have been doing the podcast. Well, basically, Idolist started it, and then he had me on as a guest, and then he had me on as a guest again, and then it kind of turned into like a co-host-host relationship, and we basically got to know about each other via YouTube and also Reddit.
Yeah.
So we were active on Reddit, on the MCOC subreddit back in the day, and he used to post these like super interesting comparisons and super interesting content, and it was really fun to see somebody who was posting content about like champions that weren't necessarily super meta at the time. So we took on that podcast together, and then Idolist had to retire from the game due to personal reasons, and also sometimes you just gotta retire. Not everybody's as addicted as we are. So, he retired. He's doing well. So
that's good.
And then I contacted him, asked him about whether or not I can keep going with the podcast, and I wanted to keep the name because I think it's a good name, and also I love breakfast cereals. So, Podcast of Champions sounded pretty good.
And then when did I think it's been quite a recent one, the relationship between yourself and Starfighter and putting together the podcast as you do. By the way, amazing podcast. Go and check it out. Links are going to be in bios as well for that. How did that relationship come about?
Basically, same as Idolist. Basically, we were active on Reddit. Star's a mod on the Reddit. And we have known each other through a lot of the streams because she's also a moderator on a lot of the streams. Yeah. And I think she brings a perspective into the conversation that maybe I'm missing, because when it comes to like a conversation like this, when it comes to content like this, I'm trying to make this content for everyone, not necessarily only for people who are playing the game 12 hours a day, or people who are super hyper competitive. And I think it's a game that is meant to be played as a game. So I really appreciate Star and the insights he brings to the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the lovely pleasure of meeting Star in person at New York Comic Con 2019, and a lovely person. So it's a case that when like myself and Dan, we do have amazing chemistry. It seems like the same thing with yourself and Starfighter. So that's vitally important to.
I say everyone in this community is lovely. So
yeah. I don't know.
We don't want to go down.
That's it. That's Dan saying like, Rich, come on.
Topic. We want to keep this to an hour, right?
That's true. And as well, like, it's as the kind of Rich, we've got to start making friends. Like, don't make enemies. Whoa, it's a good point. Okay, so this is a good point to say. Excellent. We've done the intro, and Dan, will you roll us into our topics?
Right.
Topic for discussion.
So, Rich and I, when we're planning out the podcast, they kind of, in a way, plan themselves a lot of times, because it's like, okay, what's the big news of the week? But in the middle of the month, there isn't as much new news. We know what's happening this month. We don't know too much about next month. So we like to do more of a deep dive into an issue. And I had thrown a poll up on Twitter. It was like, who do you think was the best champion of the first quarter of 2020? And Longshot got a little more than 50% of the vote. Mojo was second, and Nova and Squirrel Girl were distant third and fourths. And that just got us to talking about, well, what do we think about these 2020 champs, and why are they the way they are? And the reason that we want Cam on today is because he's just such an expert at testing these champions. If you are on Twitter, he always releases these very thorough pros and cons about the new champs and their usability, and whether or not you should be excited about them and go for them. So we think he's the guy to talk to about this. So the question that I posed to Rich and to Cam is, has Kabam changed their design philosophy when it comes to champions in 2020 when compared to what we saw in 2019? And if they have changed them, what have they changed and why have they changed it? So that's the big question for today. So, Cam, when you look at 2019 champions, I'm seeing, champions like The Thing, Havoc, Captain Marvel movie, Nick Fury, Human Torch, Namor, Stealth Suit Spider-Man, Warlock, Sunspot, Black Widow Clairvoyant, Guillotine 2099, and Doctor Doom. Just top line question: have they released anyone in 2020 that comes close to those champions? Like, would Longshot be the 10th best champion of 2019?
I think it's a complicated scenario when it comes to comparing characters, when it comes to comparing champions. So you did mention a lot of the standouts in 2019, but I feel there's a balancing act that's going on right now with the characters, with the champions, and also like with the reworks as well. So I think Longshot, Mojo, the new Supreme Sorcerer, and the new Storm are all pretty good characters in their own rights, and there's a delicate balance that has to go into making these characters purposeful, but also at the same time not making them like the go-to for everything, for every content.
Right.
And I think they're really stepping away from making one character the go-to for every content, which, inadvertently just makes some of the characters released in maybe 2018 and 2017 or even earlier just stand out even more, like the likes of Quake, the likes of Ghost, Corvus.
The really ones that are absolute workhorses that you can use 90% of the time. None of the 2020 champions really fall into that workhorse category.
For sure, yeah.
I think for me, looking at this, and as well going over some of the Act 6 stuff that I'm doing at the moment as well, Dan, and obviously Cam, you've done your progression in Act 6 in general. A lot of times I'm coming across nodes and I'm going to myself, this looks like Kabam have gone, what champion can we create that will be ideal for this? And then it's the case that the champion is then released. It's like saying, right, well, what over 2019 we had Act 6.1, 2, and 3. And over that time, I've seen certain champions come in that maybe number one, deal with the high hit pools that we have as a problem. But number two, may have some unique part of their kit that deal with specific nodes on specific paths. Is that what you may be seeing as well, Cam? Or
see, Act 6 was a very mixed bag for me. I think Act 6 would have been all done back in 2019 if the reception to 6.2 wasn't so negative. I think that that the design and the push out of Act 6 would have been much faster if they didn't mess up 6.2 so hard.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that so many of the fights in Act 6 have such massive, just unrealistic health pools.
Yeah.
And the block damage is absurd. You go into 6.4 and you come across a Darkhawk as a final boss, and he has 25,000 attack, and then he deals half of your health in one SP1 block. It's really fun. It's a good time. Yeah. So I think that when you look at the champions that have been released, and you look at the nodes that have been released, I came across this really distinctly when I was going through 6.4. It was a lane called energy adoption shock or something, and it was also diss track, and it also had something else, and then there were a lot of characters on that lane that required you to have armor break to deal with it, right? So then I was thinking to myself, what character can actually fit the bill here? And every single checkpoint was checked by Silver Surfer, which was really just a mediocre character compared to a lot of the other champions released in 2019.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that he was the only option for that lane, because like Captain Marvel movie could also do it, Havoc could also do it, but I think they really did go back and looked at those lanes and designed those nodes and the champions to go fit together as a puzzle piece.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we've seen that more recently with Mojo and Sorcerer Supreme being tested out against the 6.2 champion boss as well, where maybe they aren't going to be workhorse champions, but they've got some very specific uses, as good Mystic champions often do. They're usually not the champion you want all the time, but when you do want them, they are the best option.
I think Supreme is a champion that I would argue and say that like she fits the bill technically for that Mystic character that transcends the Mystic class. Like I think when you look at the quintessential Mystic champions, like we have Symbiote Supreme, we have Doctor Doom, we have Doctor Voodoo, we have back in the day we had Scarlet Witch. And I think Sorcerer Supreme has this ability to not be as good as the Mystics when it comes to doing the Mystic stuff. Her Nullify is not necessarily as good as Doctor Doom's, but it's still pretty damn good. Yep. But she does these things, like she does the regen, she does the power steal, she does the armor break, she has the slow. It really puts her at a slightly higher level, but at the same time lower than the other Mystics when it comes to doing the specific things. So I think when it comes to having a character that fits that maybe a bit of a jack of all trades, bill, she comes to mind for me.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem that I've got with the situation with champion design is a lot of the times it feels like a lot of this is being created in hindsight. It's like, even obviously going back to what we said, that certain of these champions, yes, are ideal for things like 6.2 and the champion fight and several different paths.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that Kabam have kind of gone, look, okay, we've made a bit of a mistake with what we've done in the past. We're going to have to build stuff that helps out people to get through this content that maybe they would have struggled? Because let's face it, you could probably count on one hand the effective champions that will be good at this given time to go against the champion, be Beardo, Symbiote Supreme, Doctor Doom, Thing, and a smattering
Metal Sonic Dude is screaming She-Hulk at you right now.
She-Hulk, but still it's difficult to kind of like get us up to about 10, and the point I'm gonna get to is that are Kabam trying to design champions for the future to then take on the more recent content, the most easiest, in a way to kind of pad out the game's, say, length of time, so you're not kind of going, look, I have to get this content done now. We're trying to space this out more.
Definitely. I mean, I feel that has been their goal. I'm not sure if that's been a mistake, but that feels like it's been their goal to release content that's too hard to complete with the current meta, and then release the new meta to overcome the last content, and then maybe this new meta would be good enough to combat some of the future content, but
has that been
it's just a catch-up act?
Yeah. Is it just act? Do you think it's just Act 6 though? Has this been present in stuff like, well, no. In some ways you could say that Kabam made a mistake by putting in a champion like Aegon, who effectively has steamrolled through some of the stuff that they've created, as going, oh, we've created this thing called Abyss of Legends. Have you got an Aegon? Yeah. Oh, you might be able to do it then. But they unwittingly didn't know that would be effectively a cheat code for it.
Even when you look at Abyss, though, there are so many matchups in there which you can do with Aegon, but at the same time, you probably don't want to do it with Aegon because it would be super expensive, and like it would make you want to pull your teeth out.
Hmm.
But when it comes to like Labyrinth, I think Labyrinth was out for long enough that they thought maybe we want more people completing this, so they released Aegon, and Aegon can go through Labyrinth even as a 4-star. As a 4-star 550, he can even come close to soloing some of those fights. So I think that was intentional on their part, and sometimes they overshoot a bit more. Maybe sometimes they overshoot with champs like Aegon, with champs like Ghost or Corvus and everything like that, because the content at the time is so difficult that you basically want to introduce a counter to this content, but then when you push that boundary to that level, when you push the champions to that level, then the content has to catch up. And in order for content to catch up to a champion like Ghost, then you have to have 400,000 health pools and 20,000 attack points.
Yeah, it is. It's so tricky that it's such a balancing act when you look at all these different champions and interactions and unintended consequences, right? Like we were talking about Abyss, right? Like, well, Dr. Doom was an unintended consequence for Abyss, right? Because they weren't testing Abyss against Dr. Doom. So you've got the Abyss design team doing one thing and predicting fights to be a certain difficulty level based on the content that's coming in, and then you've got Dr. Doom coming in and suddenly being the answer to this game mode that they haven't even released yet. Yeah. So, it's not just, a lot of the stuff that I think Cam is talking about that it's like, well, you don't really want to use Aegon for it. Well, that's the stuff you do want to use Dr. Doom for.
Yeah.
So now, I think a big topic of 2019 was big yellow numbers, right? Like there was a lot of damage combined with utility in 2019 that got us very excited. Like Cam, you've talked about this a lot, right? Like damage is not enough, right? Like there's a reason why Cull Obsidian is not heavily favored by the player base, right? Because it's just damage. Like Captain Marvel movie is not just damage. The reason that Namor is so exciting is because his SIG level allows you to overcome a lot of damage that you couldn't otherwise, right? Sunspot's pretty heavy damage, but he's a heavy damage incinerate immune champion with perfect block. So that's pretty exciting. But when you look at those champs versus what we've gotten so far, do you think Kabam is backing off on the big yellow numbers in 2020 so far?
I think they're backing off of the big yellow numbers in 2020, and they're also backing off on some of the utilities when it comes to some of these champions. Like I'm looking at 2020 characters so far, and I look at Squirrel Girl, I look at the new Storm, I look at Mojo, and I look at Moleman.
Yep.
And to a lesser extent, the new Sorcerer Supreme. All of these characters happen to have either super low block proficiency or super low health pools or both, right? Like I think there's a tendency to want you to lose health maybe in the current 2020 meta, because like you look at Moleman and you look at Storm, and both of those champions gain benefits from being at super low health pools that they really can't maintain due to their lack of survivability and also their low either HP pool or block proficiency. I think maybe we're taking a bit of a step back, and I think when it comes to these champions, they're just not gonna leave as much of a mark in the history of the game.
So where do you think the specifics of these builds come in line with? Is this something that Kabam are prepping for, say, the new act? Is this maybe some kind of new mastery? Is this to, I don't know, like focus on a current mastery? Where do you think these are being built for? Do you think just Kabam are just trying to tick some boxes for champions like this?
I mean, when you look at champion design and balance design, like I can see where the philosophy is with the new Storm. Like she glances a lot, so she's gonna be a pain on defense. So why not give her super low health pool, which makes sense. And then you look at the Sorcerer Supreme, and she has this regen on block, so it's super cool to have that. And that regen on block means that you don't really need as much health pools. And then you look at a champion like Squirrel Girl or Moleman, and they don't have any of that. They don't have perfect block. They don't have glancing. They don't have any way to mitigate incoming damage.
But did
Maybe
you
a little bit of physical resistance for Moleman, but it's.
Did you find? Sorry, I was going to say, sticking this just quickly with Storm. Did you find it weird that the critical rating was so low on the champion?
I think that was basically just to account for the prowess stacks she gets, which doesn't make too much sense to me, because at the same time, like, you can see a champion like Sunspot gaining prowess and also attack rating, but also not having a lower critical rating. So it's kind of questionable for me, but you know, it's a balancing choice, and it's a choice that hopefully leads them down the line to not needing another round of rebalancings.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing that I wanted to touch on, because I'm wondering if you look at the arc of champion designs and let's say, for a lack of a better term, the OP-ness that was coming out mid to late last year. Were they more comfortable releasing those champions in that state because they were saying, well, we've announced balancing, and if they're too much, we're just going to down-tune them anyway, and not knowing how that whole process was going to unfold? I mean, it was truly an epic saga of balancing. And now you're seeing more balanced, rightfully so, right? Like Sorcerer Supreme and Storm feel balanced. We're talking about them because they're not OP.
I mean, I don't know. I don't really know if because I know they design these characters maybe 6 months in advance, maybe a year in advance, right? Yeah. But at the same time, I also know that they can tweak numbers anytime they want. They don't have to. Right. They don't have to take 6 months to tweak numbers. They can tweak numbers the night before release, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of a question mark in my head too, because of how rebalancing turned out. It was insane. Like, I think that whole saga was just...
It's like, why go through all that time and work?
Yeah, you can make a Netflix documentary out of it. It'll be more popular than Tiger.
That would be amazing, right? Yes. Kabam Mike, make that happen. We want, we want to hear. Let's do the 12.0 one, and then this can be the follow up, right? Like, it's so juicy. But yeah, when you look at that, like, do you really think they're gonna do it again? Because, like, if I was a higher up at Kabam and looking at the numbers, and you, like, what was the dev time on rebalancing, and what did it actually get them? Like, where was the ROI there? And then, even the compensation, which was well received, it was just too complex to work.
Yeah.
So I know they haven't said anything. I think the official statement has been, we'll wait and see, and maybe we'll do some more. We hold the right to do it. But it doesn't feel like they're releasing champs that need to be down-tuned, certainly.
But when it comes into things like reworks and how they factor into things, because we've just had Colossus, people have been using that for Labyrinth for Legends, and a lot of content. I think I've seen one take on 6.4.1, I want to say, the Iceman fight. What else have I seen? Obviously with Hulkbuster as well. Where do those come in line with it? And do you think that maybe those are appeasing the community over kind of being in line with things like the way that, say, champions are rebalanced, or the balancing act in any case?
I think the reworks have been very interesting to follow because, like, I look back at Colossus and I look back at Hulkbuster, and it's kind of cool to see that every opportunity they get, they introduce another counter to Havoc.
Yeah.
Any character they can slap an armor up off on.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah, give us more. It's
Yeah.
still not enough. Yeah. So I think that the reworks have been focused on making these characters fun again, and I think that's a big factor because we have had these champions in our rosters for years now, right?
Right.
So there's that aspect of, when you have this Hulkbuster, you smash that SP2 and then you go in that corner and then you keep doing heavies and you keep doing heavies. It's a fun rotation. It may not be super practical in every game mode. It may get you killed in war because if somebody has stand your ground, you just die immediately. But I think it makes them fun while increasing their damage output, while making them viable in some game modes at least. I can see Hulkbuster being pretty good in Labyrinth maybe, or in Act 6. So it's a little bit of both for me.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, right, with these champions, because a lot of them, if you've got a 6-star Hulkbuster like I do, you're hoping for another usable 6-star. So when you look at what's going on in the beta, it's like I'm excited just because it's like, okay, well now I'm going to have another relevant character. And a lot of these OG characters like Hulkbuster, we loved him in the movies. When he was added to the game, we were all actually pretty excited. And then it turned out that, he wasn't that good, and he kind of became the meme.
So cool.
He looks so cool. He's awesome. So it's gonna be very exciting when that goes live in game. And another thing we've seen, I think we've seen this with some of the champions, and there was actually a big talk on Twitter about this recently, is the increasing use of passives. Either these either you've got like Storm with that passive cold snap, or you've got champions like Silver Surfer that are immune to active debuffs but not passives. So they're really sort of slicing and dicing where the immunities and the damage come in recently, and it feels like some people definitely need like a full tutorial about how that all works, because it is very confusing for some people with how these descriptions actually work.
And then sometimes they call it an effect, and then I'm like, where is this coming from? Not passive, not active, just an effect.
Right, yeah. Well, I think Mike was talking on Twitter that, like, take Bleed, for example. Bleed is an effect, and it can be a passive or a buff. And that was how they were describing it.
It can be Bleed can be a passive buff, like Old Man Logan gets passive bleed buffs, or does he inflict himself with passive bleed debuffs?
Well, that's
because
it's like the cold snap thing, right? Because if it's a cold snap debuff, Corvus won't take damage, but if it's a passive cold snap, like with Storm Pyramid X, Corvus will take damage. So I think what the thing is, the community took that term passive debuff and ran with it, and that doesn't actually exist. It's sounding like so.
Because this is the thing that annoyed me from the 2016, 2017 with two champions that I really like, but I hate the fact of this passive buffs and passive effects stuff. And that is like Rogue Morningstar. Because imagine all these passive buffs building. I've recently faced off against something where I think I'm on a lane in 6.4.1, and it's like the enemy builds up Fury passives. But if I had a Morningstar and they were linked to, if say they got 10 Fury buffs, then for me shooting in my SB2, I'm going to literally just melt that champion. The same way that if I was Rogue, I'd be able to kind of go, oh, I'm just going to grab your buffs for a second. And the same thing with Loki. But obviously with those being passives, it kind of loses those champions worth from going, I want to bring you from the old school meta of the game and into the current, which is something that annoys me. Do you guys? I'll start off with Cam. Cam, have you experienced stuff with that? You kind of like, I'd love to take that champion to have that kind of interaction.
See, I think that's what's going to happen if they ever rework Loki. They're just going to give him passive steals. Stealing all the passives, yeah. So I think we're not seeing necessarily more of the passive effects, negative effects and positive effects. It's so hard to phrase these properly.
We just need a definitive thing from them.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at champions in 2020, we have Storm, which has she has this passive cold snap. She also has the passive stuns. She also has like active shock debuffs and like active prowess buffs. So I think she's like a balance of both. She's a little bit of passives, a little bit of actives. You know, I think the passive cold snap really helps her versus like a debuff immune node if she wants to prevent evade. And then I look at a character like Longshot. So Longshot has access to passive incinerates, but in order to apply said passive incinerates, you need to be able to apply incinerate debuff. So again, like it's a little bit of both. And I think passive incinerators, they've been around for a long time. Like when it comes to Mephisto's aura of incineration, those were passive incinerates. And then you look at Human Torch's Nova Flames; those are technically passive incinerates. I think they're just doing more of different things, more of different passive and active buffs and debuffs and effects and negative effects. It's maybe getting a little bit much, but
Yeah.
Well, one of the good things that I do like when you look at all of the champs in 2020, whether or not they worked and they've entered the meta aside, I feel like with each champion there was a clear-cut design choice, and they went in a direction, and there's at least something that's new that we haven't seen before, and maybe it worked and maybe it didn't, but I appreciate that the champions aren't cookie cutter. Like they all look great this year. They've tried something. Like Squirrel Girl's got that thing with their hit counter working in a different way where you're adding to it and subtracting. Like that's new, that's cool. Mojo is they just went nuts, which I just love. That he's got his anti-life field and his followers and his emojos and subscribers, like just a total troll of the YouTube community. Like that's a lot of fun.
See, and then the best part of it is that if you face Mojo on defense, you also go nuts. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, he has become the banner carrier for Flow Wars in season 17. Rich, you are really missing out on these Mojo bosses, by the way.
Yeah, Rich, you should.
Chilled.
Yeah, what's up with that, dude?
Get in there.
I'm gonna be joining back in Alliance probably. I run out of glory and I can't be bothered to start my own Alliance, so I'm probably gonna join back after I've done my 6.4 clear.
There you go. If you can get in by Friday, you can still be eligible for season rewards.
What,
so,
are we still season 17?
We are.
Yeah. I don't know, you crazy cats with your alliances.
We haven't reached the cutoff yet, so you can get back in there.
17 is never ending. We're still gonna be.
Yeah, I know. We're like 5-6 wars in, and everyone's already toast.
Yeah.
So, but I think another reason why I just wanted to talk about champions is March was kind of a dud month with Moleman and Terrax. So, Cam, what do you think? What do you think they were trying to do with those two champions, and why do you think it didn't work?
Before I answer that, let me check their hashtags real quick. Are either of them Flow? Terrax is right.
Don't know. Aunt May to the rescue.
Aunt May to the rescue. Yeah. What is? Yeah, Terrax is flow. Okay.
It's just enough people don't have him yet. Maybe at your level they do, but I haven't seen him.
He's not too hard to fight. He's not a like. I think that their philosophy with that month was just introducing 2 characters that have, barely serviceable offensive utility while being a pain on defense. And Siphon and Flow, both of them fit for Siphon. One of them fits for Flow. One of them is a little man. One of them is a big man. So, yeah, I think that was just for defense.
Yeah,
I like months where at least one of the champions is good on offense, but it is what it is.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is what it is. But February was a very well received month, and you've got those are 2 good champions for offense. So,
yeah.
I guess in the big picture, it all balances out. But yeah, it was just more of like, do you see a trend of what's going on? And I would say, like, my position is, I just think their trend is to try to release champions that are more balanced out of the box. Long shot's insane passive incinerate damage aside, but even that we haven't really seen him like taking over stuff, have we? Like, I don't feel like
I think we haven't because these characters are so rare.
You think that's it? It's just the acquisition's too hard right now.
Definitely, and like Longshot, we saw Doom have such a rapid takeover because Doom was Doom, and people went for Doom, people grinded for Doom, people sold their houses for Doom.
Well, they needed the prestige, right?
That too, and also, he was cool. He
checked all the boxes.
Yeah.
But
you
needed
with
him.
Longshot, nobody knew who Longshot was. Right.
Right.
So I think when we see him enter the basic pools and when we see him become a little bit more available, when it comes to the meta of the game, it's just a 6-month delay for most characters to actually be playable. I think we'll see more of Longshot. I think we'll see more of Mojo, more of Supreme, a little bit more Storm. I think. I think Storm lends herself very well to the look at my numbers trend. You know, on Twitter, you just see like a 2-second clip of 200,000 SP2, but then there's 200 hits on the combo meter already.
Right, you did a lot of work to get there. Although she does have some interesting immunity combinations that could save you a roster spot down the line. Like, one thing I try to remind myself is just like you were talking about. It's like, okay, well, in 6 months, this game is on such a longer timetable than any other mobile game, right? There's nothing that immediate about it, and sometimes we have to be honest, right? Like, we do judge champions too quickly. How was Human Torch received? And look at where he is a year later, right? Like, he's pretty much a must-have now.
Yeah.
So you never know. One of these champions could end up being must-have later on, if, like Rich is saying, we discover it's the answer, or they release a piece of content where it is the go-to.
But that's then thinking about the idea of, is this all being prepared for the new act, and obviously whoever's going to beta test. I don't know. I don't think they're able to let slip any information. Although most of the time
it's an open beta, so
it's an open beta.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cam, are you looking forward to this beta, and do you have any early predictions for Book 2?
I mean, absolutely. I love the betas. I think I have more fun in the betas than I do in my main game. I think when I was just looking at the announcement and I saw Book 2, Act 1, I really wanted to be something just completely different. I wanted to be like a soft reboot of the game, maybe. More health, more attack. It's getting a little bit much, guys. Yeah, I don't want to fight like a 300,000 Joe Fixit. I just don't care, right? It's never gonna be interesting.
Do you want them to take a similar tactic that they used in Variant 4, where they're stargating things again, and you have to, if you're talking about a reboot, like maybe a new player just wants to jump in at, early on in book 2 and start with their 2 stars. Do you want to see something like that? Or do you want to use the rank 3 6 stars that you have and get in there?
I would rather not. Thank you very much. I think I haven't given that much thought because I do want to be surprised, but I'm really setting my expectations high because it's called a second book. Mm-hmm. Usually, when they call something a second book of a whole journey, it has to be really different. I'm not sure if stargating it and if like letting 1 stars in there is gonna be something that they're gonna be willing to do because 1 stars don't really make money,
right?
But it really depends on them and really depends on what they want out of this, and I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of times with MROC, so we're gonna have to wait and see.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when you look at how the timelines seem to be linking up, it seems pretty clear to me that there's going to be, if not an overlap, a very close amount of time between the release of MROC and the release of Book 2. I don't know which one's going to come first at this point. I mean, we're still waiting for gameplay. We're still waiting for a beta. So, who knows?
Yeah, I think
but it feels like
they announced that as soon as the quarantines are over, we're going to be getting that, and they're never going to be over. So, we're never going to be getting that.
Oh, no, don't say that. But I do like that you've thrown down the gauntlet and that you're expecting Book 2 to be basically the Empire Strikes Back of MCOC.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want a sequel that tops the original.
And I am your father, actually.
Oh, God.
All right. I mean, I feel like we have done a pretty good review of what's been going on in 2020. I don't know, Cam, Rich, do either of you have anything to add to the discussion? Anything we missed?
Cam?
Hello?
Hey, I'll let you start, Cam.
Okay. All right. I think overall 2020 so far has been fine. And that was how I felt about 2019 so far. Like at this point, a year ago, it felt fine. It felt it felt serviceable compared to 2018. Mm-hmm. And I think when we go forward, I'm still gonna be looking back at 2018 and just reminisce about the Corvus and the Omega and the Ghosts and the Aegons of the time, right?
Right.
Because these characters are all available as 6 stars, and these characters, if they're gonna be extending the life of 6 stars for as long as they seem to be wanting to extend that, like I genuinely don't think we're gonna be getting any more rank up materials, like any higher tier rank up materials from the new book, right? I think we're just gonna be getting more materials to take more 6 stars to rank 3.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty much been confirmed. Rich, didn't Kabam Frenchie say that we won't see rank 4 6 stars until 2021?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then whatever the beginning of book 2 is, it can't contain what do we need now? We need a T6B. Mm. Is that the next thing we need?
Yeah, we need a house mortgage.
Guys, I have Rich on video, and the eye roll when I said T6B. He's just holding his head. You're all missing. It's extraordinary. I don't think Rich has it in him to acquire a T6B.
I know we started off the podcast talking about stress levels and stuff like that.
Everything's fine, right? We're all doing fine.
Nothing to worry about.
I'll tell Em for our honeymoon I'm going to be trying to bash out some content.
Yeah, she'll bash you.
Good luck with that. Let me know how that goes.
You need 3 tier 6 basics. You need 3 tier 3 alphas. You need 2 tier
that's another
5
thing,
class.
Oh my god.
And 5 tier 5 basics. So it's good. It's a short list at least.
Well, if it prevents us from rebooting with 7 stars anytime soon,
Oh my goodness!
probably for the best.
Please, Lord, save us.
Yeah, 7 stars. That's I don't know. That's gonna be something.
Where are the stars gonna go?
It just looks messy. It's like turning too much into Marvel Future. I thought that it's like they could go down the route of like creating something like a platinum, like a platinum champion, or like, and then starting a different type of route rather than going with starage. But I guess that would completely throw off everything that they've built as a game.
See, they're doing a platinum pool, right? Who's like a dead pool, but instead of being gold pool, he's now platinum pool. I think I saw that somewhere in the data mines or something.
Yeah, for next week for Lost Smirks of Gold or something.
Sure, yeah. So I think we're just going to be seeing gold stars and then silver stars and then just no stars because, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we've adequately covered talking about champion design. It does feel that there's been a dramatic shift as well from what has been put. Say Kabam might say, okay, we're going to create a champion. Back in 2019, we'll be like, oh, we'll give them one aspect of utility, like the slow debuff. And obviously where we've come into 2020, it's the case maybe the philosophy is different and kind of going, right, well, we're going to have to, because of the gating system of 6.2, because of the interactions against the champions in 6.3, 6.4, we will have to create champions that will have 3, maybe even in some cases, rare cases, 4 different types of utility of interaction with something. I think that's a fair point, isn't it? To say that the champion shift is based on, there's got to be damage there, but there's a necessity for utility.
I would agree.
For sure.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's definitely a necessity for utility these days.
And I think we're going to see a lot more of slow, and I think we're going to see a lot more... I think most of the characters coming out these days have like some sort of pre-fight ability or like some sort of ability that they can carry through fights. And I think we are going to see more of like cross-fight abilities and more of like synergies that enhance some pre-fight abilities. Because like when I look at Storm's pre-fight ability, I'm just genuinely confused.
Oh god, yeah. Oh, you can have both of them. No, you only get the one, but then you go through several more fights with them, and it's like,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of liked what they did with Reed and his crossfight, and I'm interested to see who would benefit from that. Professor X jumps to mind as another character that they could add to the game that would be great for a crossfight because he would be about like buffing up the other X-Men, and so it'd be interesting. It seems like you sort of need that like character that maybe is more of a leader and not always the one in the trenches themselves. So.
Definitely, and I feel like crossfight didn't really land with Mr. Fantastic because I don't see anyone using it anywhere except for like maybe certain like maybe like YouTubers wanting to solo like Darkhawk and in Abyss a little easier with that Petrify, but I think when we see next iterations of crossfight, it's gonna be kind of the same trajectory as pre-fights and like same trajectory as persistent charges, because persistent charges, they were introduced with Morningstar and Mephisto, and like when you look at those two, one of them is amazing, but Mephisto's persistent charges, you get some amazing regen, but you have to like build him up in 4 fights without
I mean once you his persistent charge didn't really become a big deal until the champion synergy got added to the game. Definitely. Yeah, and as a guy who plays a 565 Mephisto pretty often, I can tell you my 6-star champion is right there alongside him. They're actually a pretty fun incursions combination.
Definitely.
So, yeah. So, Cam, what's up? Are you guys recording? Are you recording with Star soon? What's some content people should be on the lookout for?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to be contacted Star like pretty soon. So we're going to be recording some stuff on the new Storm. We haven't done a review yet because just wanted to save it until the arena is closer. And we're also probably going to be talking about how I feel about rank 3 6-stars, because I recently posted a little comparison on my Twitter about like my experience having a rank 3 versus having the same character at rank 5 SIG 200. And it's just, it's a little interesting to me. I think rank 3s are really fun, really cool, but at the same time, if you're stuck in content and if you're like, not really having anyone you are clamoring to rank up, you're really not missing out on anything.
Right. Yeah. And what about you, Rich? What's planned? Obviously, some Marvel contest news, and what else?
Yeah, the news Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So many like little interesting tidbits of stories. I think you posted something about there being 15 million fights in incursions. Which was just.
Seems like a good first week.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as well, there's so many other things to go over. You sent me the post about the ban in China and as well limiting the extent of spend, which obviously could or could not impact Kabam depending on people's spending habits. And there's going to be so many other kind of fresh breaking like stories. I don't know. I think I'll do a few crystal openings and maybe a couple of rank ups here and there. Who really knows? What are you up to, my friend?
Oh, I am working my way through Act 6.2.3. That is the what's that node called? You build up all the Fury buffs and then
Icarus.
Icarus. Yes, Icarus. So my Killmonger, my 565 Killmonger is off the bench and paired up with Void and hitting it hard. So nice. It's fun. There's just a lot of paths.
Yeah,
I've got 6 more to go. So,
but 10 is too many, right?
10 is too many. 10 is
now,
too many.
6 still feels like too many, to be honest.
I think five's a good number, but it's just like at the end of the day, it's like how many times do you want to fight that boss?
Like one path. What? Yeah. I take one.
You take one. You just want every fight to be Infinity Gauntlet.
Just give me every fight. I'm so tired.
Yeah. There we go. That has been the podcast. Thank you, Cam, for joining us.
Of course.
And check out links to Podcast of Champions and as well Cam's Twitter in the bios. And as well, thanks to Dan. Check him out. Frontline MCOC links as well in the bios, as well as the Twitter and the website as well. Thanks, everybody, and see you all next week. Bye-bye.